Hello everyone, this is Cobalt. This is the next video in my character analysis series for Brawlhalla. Stick around till the end to hear about entering the giveaway to win community colors, emotes, weapon skins, sidekicks, avatars, or even the battle pass, and voting for next week's legends. And if you want to skip all this and get straight into the info, there's a timestamp in the description. And don't forget to subscribe so you can keep up with the release of your favorite legend. In these analyses, I want to focus solely on the character's signatures. Light attack combos are covered more in depth than I ever could elsewhere and function pseudo-comparably for all characters of that weapon class. So I'm not going to be discussing the general neutral of a character with his weapons unless it pertains in some way to their signatures. Firstly, I want to give clear descriptions of the terminology I'll be using. Startup frames are the amount of frames that happen after a move has begun until the first hitbox of the move becomes active. Active frames are the duration of frames that the move contains hitboxes that can collide with your opponent. FAF, or First Actionable Frame, is the first frame available where your character is able to move again after the move has been started. For all of this data, I use the character's jump to display their first actionable frame. Lastly, on miss refers to the move not connecting with an opponent, and on hit refers to the move making contact with an opponent. I'm going to be doing my analysis today on my fourth favorite legend, Sentinel. Sentinel is an American superhero with electricity powers. He's an awesome character and reminds me a lot of Black Lightning from DC Comics. He was one of Earth's mightiest heroes and uses that strength to great effect in Brawlhalla. Sentinel's weapons are Hammer and Katars, offering him a decent diversity whenever it comes to range and close combat. Katars and Hammer are good in terms of both damage racking as well as knockout potential, and Sentinel is by no means a fragile character with his high defensive stats, and yes, I absolutely did copy that from my core script. He can live for quite a while, and his stat distribution is pretty good for a weapon combination that he has. He has solid knockout potential with both of his weapons, so do his signatures complement that or detract from it? Well, let's find out. Let's start with his Hammer. Hammer's side sig has a 21 frame startup, active frames from 22 to 29, and an FAF of 57. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. In fact, all of Sentinel's signatures on both of his weapons function the same on miss as on hit. For his side sig, he jumps upward and swings his hammer forward in an arching motion in front of him and slightly downward. It has a pretty good range and coverage. It covers jump or air dodges, can hit grounded opponents, and knocks out at an early damage range. It's a solid sig, but it's average in terms of frame data and end lag, so can be punishable if it misses despite its mobility. Hammer end sig has 21 frames of startup, active frames from 22 to 26, and an FAF of 44. Functions the same on miss as on hit. It covers directly in front of him and slightly upwards. It doesn't have very many active frames, but has a relatively low FAF, though its startup is average. Sentinel swings his hammer upward with some electricity for this sig. It's a pretty good sig and is a pretty quick option. Its coverage range overlaps with side sig, so think about which direction it would be more advantageous to follow up or knock out your opponent with. Hammer down sig has 24 frames of startup, active frames from 25 to 35 with an FAF of 67. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. In terms of frame data, this move is pretty lackluster. What gives this move such utility is that it's a passive sig. Sentinel jumps backwards before extending an enormous hitbox directly in front of him, covering just about any grounded approach options. This is a pretty good sig. It's really good for mix-up and functions well at ledge trapping. So it's got some pretty good utility on it. Next up are his Katars. Katar's side sig has 23 frames of startup, active frames from 24 to 34 with an FAF of 53. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Sentinel bursts forward at his opponent with electricity. I think this sig is pretty average and useful as a punish option. There isn't a whole lot of other utility for it, honestly. It can knock out pretty early, so can be a good KO option, and covers any option directly in front of him, so it provides him coverage there. It's got its uses for sure, but I think it functions best as a punish option or as a mix-up. Katar's end sig has 17 frames of startup, active frames from 18 to 33 with an FAF of 54. It functions the same on miss as it does on hit. Sentinel spirals upwards surrounded by electricity, with hitboxes surrounding him on either side. His end sig has great coverage above him, with a decent startup time. It has a decent amount of active frames, so it lingers for just a little bit and can catch landings or opponents standing on platforms for too long. This is a solid sig, and offers Sentinel a pretty good vertical kill option. Katar's down sig has 15 frames of startup, active frames from 16 to 23, and an FAF of 44. Sentinel slams his Katars into the ground, creating a large electric pulse, and it functions the same on miss as it does on hit. This is honestly my favorite sig on Sentinel's moveset. It's the fastest sig Sentinel has both in terms of startup and end lag, can kill from just about anywhere at decent damage, and the best part is whenever you slide charge it off stage, it spikes the opponent. This is really rewarding and really fun to land too. This SIG is pretty good and has good utility to it, and a solid range in a similar fashion to Core's down SIG with his gauntlets. The primary difference between the two being the knockback angle. So, overall, his SIGs are about average in terms of their frame data. His Katar SIGs have notably lower startup time than his hammer, but his weapons provide pretty solid coverage in all directions in front of him, and they offer him plenty of utility. They serve as good punish options with decent knockout power, and his passive SIG with his hammer is a great option for simultaneously evading an opponent as well as punishing them. His Katar down SIG is pretty fast and has some pretty good range, and end SIG lingers for a little bit while offering him some slight mobility and good hitbox placement. Sentinel is a solid character right now, and his weapon combination makes his moveset effective in neutral. His SIGs I think offer him some good options and are beneficial for his kit while maintaining synergy with each other and the rest of his moveset. Sentinel is a really fun character as well, who has seen some decent results in competitive metagame recently as well. Today's code to put down in the comments is Virgil, along with your Twitter handle, and if you get that reference, I appreciate you. Tune in tomorrow for coverage on my 5th favorite legend. Check the description for the poll to vote for next week's 5 legends. Tomorrow, once the final video is released, I'll distribute the prizes to the winners, and there will be a poll to determine which legend will be next, and whoever gets the most votes wins. I'll be continuing this once a day Monday through Friday over the next 10 weeks until all 50 legends are covered. So thanks for joining me on this ride, and hope to see you back for the next one. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss your favorite legend. Once again, I'm Cobalt, and thanks for watching.